In the heart of Northern California stands Redwood Valley, a place where the world's tallest trees rise like ancient guardians, casting shadows that carry centuries of secrets. And walking beneath them is a mysterious old man named Elias Redwood, known by locals as the last king of the forest. He wears a crown woven from living vines, a crown that seems to pulse with the rhythm of the earth itself, and he claims to protect a hidden kingdom no outsider has ever seen. For years, people thought his stories were nothing more than folklore, a gentle old man's imagination, but everything changed when foreign corporations, private scientific teams, and even unnamed governments suddenly began turning their eyes toward Redwood Valley. Whispers spread that the forest holds unimaginable resources, rare medicinal plants, untouched water reserves, and biological secrets capable of changing the future. And at the center of all this stands Elias, one man who refuses to give up the land he calls sacred. 2. Why are certain countries trying to influence him? Why are global powers suddenly interested in an old king with a vine crown? As we unravel this mystery, one truth becomes clear: Elias is not just protecting a forest. He is standing between the world and a kingdom that breathes. Deep inside Northern California, where sunlight filters through towering redwoods like golden rivers, lives a man who has become more myth than memory. Elias Redwood, now in his late 70s, walks the forest floor with the calm authority of someone who belongs to another time. Locals say he arrived decades ago, stepping out of the forest after a devastating wildfire, wearing nothing but a cloak of woven bark and a crown of living vines. He claimed he had been chosen by the ancient spirits of the redwoods, keepers of a hidden kingdom that humans had forgotten. Children grew up hearing his tales: trees that communicate underground, streams that heal, and a secret valley that only opens its path to those it accepts. While many dismissed Elias as an eccentric hermit, others believed his words carried the weight of truths passed down by generations of forest guardians. He knew the birth patterns of the trees, the silent language of roots, the rhythm of seasons before they arrived. To the people of Redwood Valley, Elias wasn't just an old man, he was the living embodiment of the forest's legacy. A king without a throne, but with a kingdom older than history itself. As news of Redwood Valley's hidden resources leaked out, interests surged not just from corporations, but from powerful international entities seeking control. Some foreign research groups began by offering generous funding for access to the valley. When Elias refused, they pressured local authorities, claiming scientific necessity. Then came the logging syndicates, quietly backed by wealthy overseas investors who saw profit in the valley's massive timber reserves. When land purchases failed, they attempted indirect influence, sending surveyors, requesting permits, and even lobbying for zoning changes. Elias exposed these efforts, and suddenly he wasn't just a forest guardian, he was an obstacle. Rumors spread of individuals trying to bribe him, intimidate him, even follow him into the forest. Foreign media outlets began painting him as unstable, suggesting the valley needed modern management. Some governments wanted exclusive rights to study the valley's healing plants, while others sought to exploit the underground water before droughts worsened worldwide. Elias understood something they didn't. Once the forest was opened, it would never close again. His resistance made him a target not because he held political power, but because he held the key to a kingdom the world desperately wanted to conquer. Redwood Valley became a battlefield, and Elias' hidden resources leaked out. Interests surged not just from corporations, but from powerful international entities seeking control. Some foreign research groups began by offering generous funding for access to the valley. When Elias refused, they pressured local authorities, claiming scientific necessity. Then came the logging syndicates, quietly backed by wealthy overseas investors who saw profit in the valley's massive timber reserves. When land purchases failed, they attempted indirect influence, sending surveyors, requesting permits, and even lobbying for zoning changes. Elias exposed these efforts, and suddenly he wasn't just a forest guardian, he was an obstacle. Rumors spread of individuals trying to bribe him, intimidate him, even follow him into the forest. Foreign media outlets began painting him as unstable, suggesting the valley needed modern management. Some governments wanted exclusive rights to study the valley's healing plants, while others sought to exploit the underground water before droughts worsened worldwide. Lears understood something they didn't. Once the forest was opened, it would never close again. His resistance made him a target not because he held political power, but because he held the key to a kingdom the world desperately wanted to conquer. Redwood Valley became a battlefield, and Elias its front line. The conflict over Redwood Valley escalated when foreign-backed corporations attempted to push through a research expansion plan, which would have opened thousands of acres for development. Environmental groups rallied, exposing the hidden financial influences behind the project. At the center of it all stood Elias, who became the voice of the movement, who walked from town to town, speaking in public forums, carrying his vine crown like a banner of resistance. His speeches went viral, turning him into a symbol of natural preservation. Meanwhile, others weren't pleased. Surveillance drones appeared around the valley. Strange vehicles were spotted on the outskirts at night. Locals reported seeing unfamiliar faces asking questions about Elias's routines. The forest itself seemed to react to animals, changed their behavior. Streams ran lower, and the oldest trees shed bark earlier than usual. Elias believed the forest was warning him that a final confrontation was coming. Protests erupted nationwide, with thousands demanding protection for Redwood Valley, but behind the scenes, powerful forces were still trying to force their way in. The battle wasn't just political, it was spiritual. The forest, ancient and alive, stood on one side. Those chasing profits stood on the other. And Elias, the old king, prepared for the last stand. When the final vote to open parts of Redwood Valley for international research approached, Elias gathered the community for what he called the King's Stand. People from all across the region, farmers, hikers, teachers, students marched behind him into the valley, forming a human barrier along the proposed access route. Documentarians recorded the moment Elias stepped forward, raised his crown, and spoke with a strength that defied his age. "A forest is not a resource," he said. "It is a kingdom that breathes, and every kingdom needs a guardian." His words spread across the country within hours, igniting a movement too large to ignore. Under national pressure, the proposal was withdrawn. The federal government declared Redwood Valley a protected sanctuary, shielded from commercial exploitation forever. Elias didn't celebrate. He simply returned to the forest, knowing his duty was not finished. That evening, locals saw something extraordinary. The vines of his crown glowing faintly under the moonlight, as if the forest itself was thanking him. The old king had won not with weapons or power, but with truth, unity, and unshakable devotion. Redwood Valley would live on, and Elias, its guardian, remained forever at the heart of the kingdom he vowed to protect. Elias's crown wasn't just a symbol, it was a mystery scientists couldn't explain. The crown was woven from an ancient vine species found only in a single hidden grove deep within the valley. The vines were alive, pulsing with moisture, sprouting new leaves even when removed from the ground. Elias often said the crown chose him, not the other way around. When scientists examined a small fallen piece of vine, they discovered compounds capable of accelerating cell regeneration. It was a biological miracle, an evolutionary anomaly. It made the crown priceless. Some foreign researchers believed the crown was the key to accessing the grove, theorizing that the vines responded only to certain environmental or biological signals. This obsession with the crown pushed tensions higher. Elias warned that removing the vines or experimenting on them would destroy the grove and break the natural balance. But to powerful interests, it wasn't nature, it was opportunity. They wanted the crown, the vine species, the grove, everything. Liars. Wore the crown not out of pride, but out of duty, knowing it linked him spiritually and biologically to the valley. To others, it wasn't a crown, it was a target. And the old king knew the danger it carried. As the sun sinks behind the towering redwoods and the valley settles into its ancient rhythm, Elias Redwood steps forward one last time, his crown glowing softly beneath a fading light. His voice is calm, gentle, but filled with a strength carved from decades of devotion. This forest has stood longer than any empire, he says. It has watched the world rise and fall. VR. Watched kingdoms built and kingdoms forgotten. And through every century, its heartbeat never changed. He rests a hand on the bark of a giant redwood. Some came here seeking profit. Some came seeking power. This place was never meant to be owned, was meant to be understood. A kingdom is not defined by walls or weapons, but by what it protects. And this kingdom, this living sanctuary, protects us more than we protect it. He turns to the people who stood with him, his voice rising with quiet fire. Remember this, the true crown is not gold, it is responsibility. And the greatest power we hold is the choice to safeguard what cannot speak for itself. Redwood Valley survives today because you chose to stand, to protect, to believe. A king is nothing without his kingdom. And a kingdom is nothing without its guardians. With that final truth, the last king of Redwood Valley steps back into the forest, his duty fulfilled, his legacy